And 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's up, you guys? So this is going to be a continuation to a Goddess of War or the Wonder Woman character breakdown videos. And this is going to be a continuation, but not really breaking down her moveset, but more so breaking down like her gameplay. So I think I'm just going to call this a Goddess's Warfare Tactics. And this video mainly is just going to cover the different play styles that she has and what you want to do in these play styles, when you want to use them, where you want to use them, and basically all the things of that sort, like everything that falls into like that category. And just to give like a brief background, the main reason why I'm doing this is because I do want to work on matchup breakdown videos, but I can't really cover all the information like in commentary or even in text. Like, it's just way too much information, like too much of a thought process to like incorporate into like a split second, you know? So I'm kind of just making this video and then a following one afterwards to cover all of the general stuff, like all of the things that you can kind of apply in every match, and then use this as a reference, and then any following character specific matchups that I'll be covering, like breaking those down, you'll be able to just learn all the specifics themselves, you know, on top of all the general knowledge for her. So one of the easiest ones to cover, and honestly they're all effective, but you have to know when and where to use them, but one of the easiest ones to cover is her turtling or her defensive playstyle, which is obviously either being full screen or being in like her shield toss range, like around over here. Just because at this range, most characters, they cannot touch you. You can see things that are coming at you, you can avoid things, you know, you can step out of the way, and if they're slipping up, you can always just check them with like a shield toss. So it's usually like this range, and like from here to full screen, that's the turtling range, that's the defensive range that you want to stick to. And again, you want to use these in matchups, or actually I didn't even cover this, my bad, but you want to use these in matchups where they can't really zone you. So like let's say Robin, for example, he's somewhat of a bad example just because he has ways to patch up the Birdarang, but it's like, let's say he throws a Birdarang, you can see it coming, so you can just parry on reaction, or you can jump it on reaction. If it's somebody like Sub-Zero, you can parry his ice balls on reaction, you know, you don't really have to worry. If he throws an ice clone, it's not even going to reach you from full screen. So it can be against characters like that, characters that don't have any zoning or any like genuine full screen presence, like Flash, like Catwoman, for example. So those are the matchups that you want to prioritize this in. But then one of the key things that you actually want to use this for, this can be any matchup, is to maintain a life lead. So like let's say, you know, like I do all of this. Let's say this is a second health bar, right? And I still have my full health and they're down to that. This is when you can just turtle so that you can, you know, just stay away and build your meter. And that's what I forgot to cover right at the start. One of the main goals at this range is to build bar and to build it safely. Just because characters like Catwoman, for example, if you were to throw this out, like the shield toss, and it misses, she can just cat dash on reaction and punish you. So you want to whip specials that you know will not get punished and that have a decent amount of recovery too. Because you don't want to do something like this, you know, like you get into this weird position and then you have to wait a little bit to recover. Or you don't want to just toss out a shield for no reason whatsoever, you know? Or like just do a parry for no reason whatsoever so you can see how long it takes for me to start crouching again. So you just want to build meters safely, and you just want to hoard up as much as you can. From my experience, the best way, or like the best times to actually go to this playstyle is usually during the second round. Like you can do this at the start, like in the first round. Like against someone like Batman, for example, you get a life lead and then you can just turtle him for the majority of the match. You can do it against him, but in most cases, this shines a lot more during the second match. Of course, this is just my experience. This is just my own thoughts. So you are more than welcome to do and approach this and choose to do this whenever you feel like it. But you know, these are just my my opinions and my feedback based on my own experience. So again, you really just want to build your bar. And the reason why I was mentioning the second round is that meter becomes so much more crucial in the second round, or the second health bar. So you want to hoard on to as much as you can so that if there's ever a clash, you have the meter to spend. If the opponent initiates a clash, you'll have the meter to contest with them or even beat them. If they're getting too aggressive, you can push block them. If it's getting really close to the end of a match and they do something that has a gap in it and you have 4 bars, you can just super right through. So that's really why you just want to build that bar. And also when you're from full screen, you're more or less guaranteed trait activation safely. So it's like, and you may not always get a buff that you need, but my go-to rule is if you're in a spot, especially like full screen, that you're not going to get punished, just keep on popping trait, because it's always a buff that's coming. So there's no reason not to, you know, like activate it. And that's really just a defensive playstyle in a nutshell. Again, you can do so many things reactionary. If you see Bane charging at you, you can just jump and use an air shield to hover, you know, just to go over the charge itself. If characters are zoning, again, you can just parry. You can low profile. If it's like a whole bunch of mids, you can just low profile that zoning. So you just have like all these options. And again, that's a whole defensive and turtling playstyle as a whole. So now it's gonna move on to her aggressive, or like her more rushdown oriented type of game, right? So for this, the main purpose why you want to play aggressively with her, from again my experience, is you really just want to use it just to push them into the corner, just because she has plus frames, she has the bash, she has a good jump in, she has like 2-2-3 your plus, she has like these grab setups, sure. The only thing is she is not really rush down oriented, and the reason being is that when you play rush down, you are going to be using the bash, you're going to be using jump 3, you're going to be using back 2, you're going to be using 1-1-3, you're going to be using 2-2-3, like you're going to be doing all this stuff, sure. The only thing is there are so many little things that the opponent can do right back at you. Like I was mentioning in the character breakdown, 1-1-3 has a gap, they can blow it up. 2-2-3 has a gap, they can blow it up. Down 1-2 has a gap. I think only Batman can parry it, but it's still a gap, they can always backdash it. And again, down 1-2 afterwards, you're negative. You can get punished in certain matchups. So then you're forced to burn bar, you know, like all the time, which you don't always want to do. You don't always want to just spend your meter all the time. So that's what I mean. It's like you don't always want to just stay on top of them. You want to just use it as a means to stay on them, just to push them to the corner, and then you can move towards her mid-range game, which I'll cover after this. So to go in depth a little bit with the whole aggressive playstyle, it's very strongly neutral oriented, like neutral range, which is starting match range, like right around over here. And you can weave in and out of this a little bit, like move a little closer, move a little back, like if you want to get like max range lassos. But that's more into the mid-range game, but you know, like that is an option. My rule of thumb in general is you want to be in range where your back 2 is going to connect. Like it doesn't matter if it hits them or not, you just want to be in that range where it will touch them. Because in that way this is safe, like I was mentioning before in the character breakdown videos, 2-3 is plus, and then this into the shield bash is a jailing block string, and it's safe in your plus afterwards. So as you can see, like if you just did that, look at how far I pushed them already. Like let's say I did this again, they're still walking back a little bit. All I did was just burn 2 bars, and I'm working on my, well, not working on my third. I guess technically I am working on my third, but I'm working towards my next bar. So I used 3 bars in total, you know, and I still have 1, but they're already in the corner, and I did all that chip, and I was safe throughout the entire process of doing all of this. And that's kind of the general mindset that you want to be in when it comes to playing aggressively, is you just want to be safe, you want to be smart with your meter usage, you want to build your meter at the same time whenever you can. But the main goal again is be safe, don't get punished, don't leave an opening to get punished, and the main goal is to push them to the corner so that you can gain some space and then just play from like her sweet spot range where she excels in the most. So I guess to go over the tools really quick, to gloss over them with the aggressive playstyle, is again back 2 for the reasons I explained. You have back 2, it's safe, back 2-3 is plus. At the max range, most characters cannot punish you for it. Like they can't interrupt the gap. And then you have, you know, like back 2 into that. You don't really want to do back 2 into lasso, just because if they duck it, they can always just punish it for you. They can always punish you for it, I mean. So you have that. You have 1-1-3 when you're up close. Like I mentioned before, 1-1-3, You cannot frame trap them with a down 1-2, so just be mindful of that. If you're gonna try to capitalize on your plus range, just go into the bash. This is based on a read, so it really just depends on your opponent and how well you're able to read the opponent and adapt to them. But it's like 1-1-3 into down 1-2 will catch people if they're trying to poke back at you, or they're trying to do attacks right back at you. It'll catch them, but again, it's based on a read. Because let's say they're not doing anything and they just keep on moving back, I move backwards to kind of replicate that scenario where they're going to be moving back. It's creating the same exact distance. This whole string is going to whiff and they can punish you for it. So that's why you don't always want to commit to it. You just want to know what your opponent is going to do and just work around that. Like work around their tendencies. And again, you know, 1-1-3 has a gap. So what you can do is if they're just armoring. Oh, before I mention all that stuff, I did forget. I made a note of it in the first part of the character breakdown videos, but let me just cover this in depth a little bit. 1-1-3, it does have a 6-frame gap, but they need to have a 6-frame down 1 to trade hits. It's actually not even going to interrupt it. It's just going to trade hits. And only some characters can actually trade with it. Like, I don't think Scarecrow, even though he has a 6-frame down 1, I don't think that he's able to even trade hits with the last hit of the 1-1-3. Like, it just won't come out. He'll get hit with the lasso itself. I think Starfire can trade hits. I think Wonder Woman can trade hits. But I think that's it. Like, if they have 6-frame jabs, it's not going to work. The jab just doesn't come out. They'll always get hit out by the lasso. So that's one thing, you know, like miscellaneous information to keep in mind. So it's like, even if they do trade hits, you're only going to eat like that little bit of damage from a down 1, and they're going to eat the full damage from that last hit. And you get the knockdown on top of that too. So, you know, it's basically like a win-win situation. So again, they have the option to backdash. Where's reversal? Here we go. They have the option to backdash, in which you're both going to be safe. No one's really going to punish anybody. You both recover it at roughly the same exact time. So if they have a habit of doing that, you can always just bait it, wait for them to dash backwards, and then punish them for it that way. Or you can just bait it, and then charge again with the bash. You know, like you have like these little options here and there. So you can do that, and then if they're just armoring, there's no easy way for me to replicate this, so I'm actually not even going to. I'm trying to think which of her specials are like very slow that I can use. None of them really. Alright, like let's say the lasso. Imagine that that's the back 3, like meter burn back 3, right? You're always going to recover way too slow from that last hit, that you're always going to get punished by a meter burn back 3 or forward 3. So, you know, you do want to be careful and you want to watch your opponent's meter for that specific situation. So what you can do is you can just bait it and then parry it. Obviously, it can't parry the lasso. But it's like you can just bait the meter burn and just parry it. Or you can just do 1-1 because you're still safe, and then just try to low profile the meter burn forward 3 or back 3. Just because she can't low profile a certain amount. But one thing that I was finding out in matches and with labbing is, I mentioned before that you can do 1-1 into this, into like a meter burn forward 3 or back 3. This is good and all, like it does work in a sense, but if they're playing reactionary, because you're using the cancel advantage frames, their window to interrupt actually becomes a little bit delayed. Like, I'm trying to list this example. Okay, you see how that last hit of 1-1-3 hits her before the lasso even comes out? She has such a small window because it's only a 6-frame gap, right? But if I do this whole cancel, you can see the full lasso coming out. Just because this move is just taking so much longer to come out. It's like 28 frames or 30 frames, I forget. And she's using up her cancel advantage, so the window does increase. So if they're playing reactionary and they see you doing this, they can always just meter burn forward 3 or back 3 on reaction to your meter burn forward 3 or back 3, and they'll actually beat you out. So this isn't actually a really good tactic to use in this specific string. Like, you can only really do this when it comes to the 2-2 string, just because the gap is large enough that they can always get a guaranteed poke or a jab, or like a reversal special. So they can still wait for that last hit to come out, and then they can always just do a meter burn, back 3 or forward 3 in between the gap of 2, 2, 3. They can always do that, that's fine. But the thing is, because it's not the same, the window to interrupt is so much larger than in 1-1-3. More often than not, the opponent is going to go for a jab or like for a poke. So when you're trying to play aggressively and you're trying to bait that kind of play style, you know, you are more or less welcome to, you know, cancel into the floor of the wall bounce. I went in depth with that a little bit more than I had intended to, but you know, like that's kind of your little bit of a mind game. And again, with 2-2, it works exactly the same as 1-1. You can do 2-2, it's safe. You can low profile after 2-2 if they're meter burning forward 3 or back 3. You can just bait it and just do a parry. Obviously, I can't parry the lasso again. Or you can always just hold block. Just do the string itself and then just block and wait for them to commit to whatever it is that they're doing. And those are the main strings that you're going to be using at this range, like when you're trying to play aggressively. And again, like what I was mentioning before, 2-2-3, it does guarantee a grab attempt. So that's why you want to use it, just because as you can see, it pushes them so far into the corner. And you also want to use the grabs for positioning too. Like let's say you're over here, you want to use a grab attempt or like do like a meaty or something, so you're able to grab them and put them into the corner. You see, like let's say I'm right over here and I'm stuck. You know, it's like you'll do like a meaty jump 3, let's say, and then just try to grab them, like if you had the opportunity. Or let's say she's just not doing any reversals at all. You know, you just do like 2-2-3, get those plus frames, and then throw them back in. A lot of it is really just positioning. That's really why you want to use the grab. So it's like if you're trying to push them to the corner, you want to grab them forward. You know, if you're on the opposite end, you want to grab them just to throw them in. And even if the opponent has a habit of teching your grabs, I want to show you guys this. This is why I grab people no matter what. See, they teched it. I'm still doing damage, as you can see. They can tech it fine, but I'm still getting little bits of damage every single time. So that's why I still go for techs. Like, not for techs, but I still go for grabs either way. Just because of that. So you have that, and then that's why you also use jump 3. Because it's another way to get a grab attempt. Because you are plus, like the deeper the jump 3 is, the more plus she is. So it's like you can use this and then jail it into down 1-2. Or you can use this, create a little bit of a delay to force them to start mashing something and then go into a bash. Or you can use this and then go into like plus frames after. I'm not being frame perfect with this. So you can do things like that. This itself, the shield, the air shield, it is plus on block when you meter burn it. So that is another option that you have. But yeah, this is more or less the gist of how you want to apply like up close pressure, like to be aggressive. And you really want to get down, one of the things that I forgot to mention, you really want to get down being frame perfect. Because you're plus off of this, but you're not close enough to use your down 1, right? So you want to practice being frame perfect with the bash. As you can see, I'm not being frame perfect, I'm missing my window. But it's like you want to practice being frame perfect with this, so that even if the opponent tries to poke back, at worst, you'll trade hits. Best case scenario, because they're trying to interrupt your follow-up afterwards, they'll get hit by this bash, and it'll push them so much further into the corner, as you can see. So, you know, like that's how you want to, like that's the mindset, and that's sort of, I guess, the mechanical habits that you want to get into when you're trying to play aggressively. And also, you just want to be frame perfect, just because, you know, like let's say they slip up when you're up close, you want to be able to punish them with a down 1-2. Like you want to be frame perfect, because in that way it's so much easier. You can just capitalize on it, get a full-blown punish. I messed that up. That was supposed to be a bash. And then, you know, like you get them in. Like you push them so much closer to the corner. As you can see, they're basically right there, just off of one combo. So yeah, that's really just the aggressive play. You know, like a lot of it is really just staying on top of them, but being safe about it. You don't really want to stay on top of them to open them up, because that's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to push them to the corner. Because I mentioned this again in the breakdown videos, she's not a mixed character. She has back 2, she has forward 2, yes, but the thing is she doesn't thrive off of mixing, and it gets so situational, and you can only really do it off of a knockdown. So that's why it's like she doesn't really open people up by mixing, because that's just not her design. Like, she doesn't have the frames for it, she doesn't have the properties for it. Like, it just doesn't really work that way. So a lot of it, again, is really just that whole bleeding out factor, like what I was covering when I covered her specials. It's like you just want to chip them, you want to harass them, and you just want to push them into the corner, so that way you can play her actual true game while you're at this distance. So I guess to just go into this distance is her mid-range game, or what I like to call it is her opportunist range. And the reason why I call it an opportunist range is because you want to stay in a range like this where you can do things like that, like air downward shields, and then convert off of it into a lasso. Or you can do straight air shields, or not straight air shields, but just like straight shields in general, and then cash out with like a little bit of damage. It's not a lot, but it's a lot more than just landing one hit on its own, And it's called opportunist in a way just because it's very reactionary. So it's like if they're doing something reckless, you can just catch them with the lasso. If they're trying to jump at you, you can anti-air them. So let's say you're over here, you see, like, you have enough time to react. I don't know why I'm not landing these. But yeah, so it's like you have all this space to work with, So that's how you really want to use it. And like, let's say they're just standing still, right? Let's say they're just standing still over there being patient with you. You can start incorporating moves like this, like her 1-1-3. So that's how you want to stay in this range, like the mid-range opportunist type of range. And over here you can use air downward shields. Like, this is like their max range. This is kind of your, I guess your reference, if you want to call it that, is where this reaches at its max range. That's the ideal range for the mid-range game. Like, that's where you want to stay, where this is going to reach them, like, just barely. Just because you can always move back a little bit, because the shield toss, the regular one, it does reach further. So if this reaches, this is always going to reach also. And if you meter burn it, like this reaches, as you can see right there, if you meter burn this, then the lasso is going to reach. Oh no, wait, I messed that up. As you can see. It's just that the hitboxes are so funny that they do that little stagger back and forward when they get hit. See, because look, see how she staggers forward? For some reason, when she starts moving back a little bit, that's what causes the lasso to whiff. So that's why that first example was like really messed up. But yeah, this is basically the mid-range game. So over here, you are more or less welcome to build your meter a lot more safely than in the other ranges. As you can see, you can just keep on doing like air shields, because majority of characters can't punish you for it. But you don't want to be too reckless with this, just because you do have all this time. Like, it doesn't seem like much just because of the recovery, but there is this entire window where she hits the air, does a shield, falls back down. That entire window she can get punished. So if you're missing it, and your opponent knows their spacing and they move out of the way just slightly, just for it to whiff, they can punish you. So you don't want to make too much of a habit of just throwing out shields for the sake of throwing out shields. But yeah, that's essentially it. Like, this is the range where, like, you take care of, like, all those extra things. And I guess some of the miscellaneous stuff, like, to cover in, like, all the aspects, is you want to manage your meter really, really, really well when it comes to any playstyle that you do. So my philosophy, the way that I manage meter, is a build and burn type of factor. Like I was mentioning before, you always want to have 2 bars. Or in general, you always want to have at least 1 bar with her, just because she can't really cash out. If she gets a punish, she can't do much of a combo at all unless she has bar for a shield toss. So that's why you always want to have a bar. So my general thing is, whatever amount of bar that you have, whether it's 1 bar, whether it's 2 bars, whether it's 3 bars, you want to work towards 1 more bar up, and then right before you reach that additional one, you burn it. So to kind of list that as an example, like, let's say I'm doing this, I'm harassing them a little bit, I'm doing all of this crap, I'm doing all of this. See, like right there, any special that I use afterwards or anything they do after, I'm going to build that next bar up. So I'll usually go into a bash, like that would be the special that I go to, just because I can burn it. And you see I'm still back at my 2. So that's kind of how you want to work around this. See, like this, I know if I do a back 2 into a bash right now, I'm going to build that 3rd bar, as you can see. So a lot of it takes a lot of time using the character and knowing how much meter gets built for every single attack that you do, so that you're able to take note of these little things like the meter usage and meter management. Just because you don't want to be like this and then just burn bar and then you're only left with 1, or you only have 1 bar and then, oh, let me just burn it, you know. Yes, you build meter very quickly in this game, but you don't just build it for free, you know. So you don't always want to just be running on empty. You always want to be conservative and always conserve at least 1. Ideally, like I said before, ideally you want to have 2, but always just have at least 1. So that's kind of my thing. Like that's what I do, and that's my advice. It's like just learn how her meter usage works. Just so that like you are aware as to what's going to happen. See, like with this, I know if I do like a jump 3 into down 1 2 into the bash, I know that's going to build me more than enough meter, as you can see. So it's like a lot of it is sort of planning ahead, like in a very split second. So that's also why I'm making this video separately, just because, like I mentioned before, when I cover matchup breakdowns and like different matches themselves, this is just too much information to explain for like a very split second decision. So that's like the main purpose as to why I'm even doing this. So yeah, that's that in terms of like the meter usage. So now I guess kind of going into or covering the, I guess the reasons why you want to go into different play styles or how you weave into them. Or I guess weaving into them, that itself just takes practice. But the thing is, it's like you want to be comfortable enough that you can go into any of these play styles. You can weave in and out, and you can switch from these different play styles. Like you can be aggressive, let's say, you know, like you can do all of this stuff, like you're getting aggressive, you do a back 2 or something, or like let's say you do this, you do 1 with 3, and then you backdash away, and now you're at mid-range. So you were just playing aggressively, but now you moved yourself into mid-range. And so now you're changing your habits and you're changing your movements to accommodate to this mid-range game. Like let's say you're doing all of that and then you just need to get away. You can just back up and now you're at your turtling or your defensive playstyle, and then playing it accordingly that way. Because if you were in their face, you wouldn't be doing this. You know, like you wouldn't be whiffing lassos. So it's just trying to get into that habit of being able to switch different playstyles on the fly all the time. Like that itself is what takes practice, and that's why I'm making it separately, just because different matchups call for different playstyles. Some matchups you can kind of go into all of them and you're forced to go into all of them. Some of them you're just better off sticking to 1 or 2. You know, so you know, it's for those reasons that I'm doing this. Or it's like, let's say you're in mid-range, you know, and then you just use a bash to close the gap, to close the distance, and then you're getting close into your face, you know, you're doing all this, and now you're playing aggressively. You were just in mid-range, but now you're in their face. So, you know, just things like that, little things like that. And I guess one final thing to mention, you want to try to practice wave dashing. Like, it's not the simplest thing to do, but as you can see, her backdash, not her backdash, but her backwalk is pretty good. You know, like she goes full screen in a decent amount of time, as you can see. But it's like when you get this down, you do reach it a lot faster. So it's like you want to be able to try to get this down, but without backdashing. Because as you can see, if you press back, the way that I'm doing it is just hitting back, 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 back. But there's a certain rhythm to it to cover the distance faster. But you don't always want to. The reason why I'm saying that you want to get it down right is because you don't always want to just backdash, because even if it's accidental, you can get punished for it. You know, as opposed to just constantly holding back, you're always technically blocking by doing this. But if you backdash, you're now in recovery, so you can get hit. So you don't want to put yourself in a position to, you know, get dealt damage if you don't need to be. So yeah, that's really it. I'm trying to think what else to cover, just because I actually did write everything down this time. But yeah, I think that is just about everything in terms of covering her play styles. Oh, also another thing, with the whole opportunist thing and with her as a character in general, you don't want to just constantly be initiating everything. A lot of the times, you just want to bait the opponent. It's sort of like you want to force movement so that they're moving because you want them to move. I feel like, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this when I was covering Melina in FKX, because she had a very similar playstyle, but Wonder Woman and Melina, they have the tools, they have the means to contest with majority of situations. So they're very good at countering a lot of different playstyles, or like a lot of different tool sets and a lot of different player tendencies. They're really good at countering as a whole. So to counter, you have to wait for your opportunity. You know, like you have to wait for something to counter. You can't counter something if you're constantly just throwing out attacks. Because if anything, you're leaving yourself open to get countered. So you just really want to get in that mentality with her, because that is how she thrives as a character. Is really just waiting and baiting for those windows, for those openings. Like that's why you want to stay over here, because if they want to jump, you know what, now I punish you. Or if they whiff something, or they have a missed input, or you block something accordingly, then you can get in with the bash. As opposed to them just holding back, you throw a bash, let's say they just keep on walking back and your bash misses, now you get whiff punished. You know, so it's like you want to be sure that everything is always going to make contact. You don't just want to keep on throwing shit out just for the sake of throwing shit out, basically. So it does require a lot of like discipline, a lot of like self-control. But yeah, that's about it. I can't really think of anything more to cover. I'm going over all the notes and all the bullet points and everything that I wanted to cover, and I did cover everything. So yeah, that's just about it for the playstyles. So the next video that's going to be after this is going to be like in-match application as to like my philosophy and the different kinds of meta between like first round, second round, wagers, meter management, but like more in depth, wagering, clashing, you know, stuff like that, interactables. It'll be going over all that crap, and how I approach the match in general, instead of like being like too specific, because I can just do matchup breakdowns for that. But yeah, so I hope that this was of use, and I hope you guys have a good day or night, and take care.